Analysis of French's Criticism on Gender and Shakespeare by Katherine Albertson and Leah Corson.
How do you define gender? Do you think of girls with little pink bows or boys with blue action figures? How can a toy or color define an entire subcategory of species? Do we even realize when we create a human identity based on generations of illegitimate perceptions? Is it possible not to?
Marilyn French, one of the most empowering feminists of the 20th century, thought she may be able to explain this common pressure to conform our way of thinking. It is easy to conclude how French became such a prominent advocate for women's rights in everyday society. Her persistence and tenacity allowed her to create an educational and social experience which rectified her ability to express her ideas in a way that inspires people.
French's life has modeled the characteristics of a strong, independent woman in all her fields of identity. As an adolescent, French graduated early from high school and put herself through college. Once married, she monetarily and emotionally supported her husband through school while raising 2 children. After 17 years of marriage, French divorced her husband because she felt as though he was controlling and brash. French took night classes and later earned her PhD from Harvard University. She used her education and righteous self to create masterful and controversial theories, appreciated and debated by many scholars, male and female.
In her first work, The Woman's Room, French discusses the inequality observed within Western society on the basis of gender roles. Opponents to her ideas charged French that she viciously approached the gender problems in society by calling all men rapists, and that's all they are. Feminist critics examine the relationship between gender and unbalanced power in society. In the feminist belief, women are often excluded from achieving equality with men because of male-dominated systems.
Within her application, French discusses Shakespeare's avant-garde ideas about multifaceted gender equalities when the world viewed gender and its coordinating stereotypes as very cut and dry. She tips her hat to the 17th century fictionist by promoting his idea that one gender principle does not need to categorize the physical gender of an individual. Shakespeare had the audacity to step away from the foundations and institutions cemented with particular traits to a subspecies of humanity. He started to break the already preconceived notions in our multicultural societies to make his work complex, engaging, and relevant. Today, we still gain insight from Shakespeare's piece and French's criticism because both of their theses contribute to our idea of gender and its reality in our present and ever-changing world.
Marilyn French divides her concepts into 2 documents, the first explaining her theory about gender principles and the second applying her prominent ideas into the text and characters of Hamlet. In French's gender principle theory, she organizes her essay by first defining her claim. She then provides a warrant and supports her conclusion with evidence from historical, literary, religious, and mythological characters. She categorizes common perceptions of ordinary identities and occurrences into 3 gender principles. The masculine principle simply bases itself on the ability to kill or have the most power. It is identified by the 3 A's: action over feeling, authority, and aggression. The desire to transcend or overcome nature, time, and morality is the utmost priority. This can be achieved by having a namesake, creating a dynasty, or getting recognition for an accomplishment.
Her next category is the outlaw feminine principle. This principle is directly associated with the desire for pleasure of being. The masculine principle hates the outlaw feminine because its goal is to eradicate any kind of controlling structure, which is what the masculine principle strives to construct. Instead of having avidity for morality, the outlaw feminine principle accepts death and believes it is a consolation for living. The in-law feminine principle, on the other hand, is supportive to the masculine principle. This principle encompasses only the benevolent qualities of nature. The in-law side is supportive and nourishing to the service of transcendence. This principle exudes compassion and mercy.
Speaks about each individual character with length and discusses their personal gender subcategory with insight. Some of her greatest revelations about character, theme, and Shakespeare are developed in her analyses of Claudius, the Ghost, Hamlet, Ophelia, and Gertrude. Claudius encompasses both masculine and feminine traits. He cares about Gertrude and tolerates her difficult son, which is a nourishing feminine action. On the other hand, he is a murderer and an adulterer, which indicates the masculine principle.
Ghost solely displays masculine characteristics. During his short time on stage, the ghost gives Hamlet orders to kill Claudius in order to revenge his murder. Enforcing justice through aggressive force and mandating Hamlet's actions are two central qualities of the masculine principle.
Hamlet is also a character that represents multiple principles. He shows a masculine facet because he is a murderer. He kills multiple people throughout the play and does not show any remorse. Hamlet values thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which indicate that he is also feminine.
Qualities of the in-law principle are developed through Ophelia, demonstrating that she is obedient, chaste, and dependent upon male control to guide her. French characterizes Ophelia as strictly in-law feminine, but French may have overlooked the fact that Ophelia was accepting of her death and possible suicide, a definite characteristic of the outlaw feminine principle.
Gertrude is characterized by both the in-law and outlaw feminine principles because she is a kind and loving mother and a supportive wife. Yet, she also desires sexual pleasures and finds herself with some control over her son and other patrons in Elsinore.
Within her gender principle theory, French relies very heavily on Holy Testaments or Greek mythology as evidence for her case. Some of the evidence she utilizes cannot be fully reliable because we do not securely know if these events truly happened. But in that, we can also see how if these events are false, our society has adopted these texts and stories as a vital part of different groups and social necessities. What does this say about our society? Are we still adopting and accepting century-old fables and texts subordinating women?
French efficiently uses the play Hamlet by consuming and developing the text to contribute to her argument. She creates a claim about her principle and applies the direct concept to the text of Hamlet, warranting her opinion and supporting her claim. For example, she writes, Claudius is, he claims, a slave, a cutpurse, a king of shreds and patches. In this way, the seemingly digressive scenes with the players are central to the play.
French declares Hamlet as a character who possesses the feminine outlaw principle in many ways of thinking. Hamlet resembles feminine characteristics, inwardly displaying his critical thought, emotion to experience, and reflective nature throughout the negative political and social situations decorating the play. Hamlet also rejects Ophelia's sexuality towards him, typically a non-masculine response.
An item that French may have overlooked could be Hamlet's sexuality, which may change his gender principle characterization as well. French characterizes Hamlet with a combination of the gender principles, while she does not go into this depth with any of the other characters. Can it be possible that Hamlet's personality and character can both be feminine and masculine? In some instances, Hamlet displays the feminine in-law principle, coordinating with his sexual and emotional tensions and tangles with Ophelia. One can argue that his longing stare at Ophelia in her bedroom climaxes Hamlet's overall disgust towards women, forcing him to realize his true sexual desires. Think about it. Hamlet and Horatio could be having a romantic relationship within the castle of Elsinore. Hamlet trusts Horatio with any kind of information, including his second-hand killing of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Horatio's protection over Hamlet appears to be something more than friendship. After Hamlet and Ophelia's relationship disintegrates, he makes a dramatic attempt to pull Ophelia from her grave and express his regret. His action of illegitimate love manufactures a cover-up, disguising Hamlet's homosexuality. Hamlet's outward rejection to the feminine sexuality culture results in our interpretation of his sexuality. The idea about Hamlet's sexuality is not far-fetched. Shakespeare has written about gay men before. Could Shakespeare have been attempting to reveal something about his own life?
The gender principles, although not representative of gender, illustrate the way in which we perceive others. French, in our opinion, has overlooked sexuality by not considering the ways that these principles apply to same-gendered relationships.
French summarizes a common motif in the play to establish a critical idea about all of our lives in society. Are we all acting to a certain principle to assimilate into our vicious world? Or are we born with these definite principles and develop new gender traits while we grow into society? How would we act if we had never experienced society's preconceived notions around gender? According to her criticism, we appear to act in a different way than our true personalities would reveal if shown.
We are not so convinced by French's principles when they coincide with the specific physical parent genders. What defines our gender? Maybe we should consider gender a spectrum of different anatomical and emotional traits. We are not simply man or woman, but somewhere in between. Our definition is not bisected by physical or stereotypical normalities or abnormalities. Each of us develops our unique individual gender throughout life. We are not defined by one specific term. We are a full-length novel searching for identity.
I was not born female, I was born Catherine.